Just a final comment for the facilitators. So if you can keep a record of the post-its or the thoughts, if you haven't already done so, either on a photo or something, I'll probably sit down with you and debrief a bit more at length than this format at some point. Yeah. Cool. So thank you everyone. Excellent.
So, excellent. Thank you very, very much. As I said at the beginning, we'll take all of the feedback from the facilitators. We'll review it and we'll make sure we keep everybody here updated on what we're doing with what sound like a very sensible and well-considered bunch of actions and thoughts. So thank you very much for that. Also, thank you for what has been our first real bit of agile at scale, which is our retrospective. I know it takes a bit of courage to discuss some of these things, especially when there are members of the leadership team on the table, but I think it's enormously valuable to have the feedback that you've given us. And I'd also like to thank the facilitators, some of whom for which this was their first chance to practice their newly honed Scrum Master and Agile skills. So thank you to the facilitators. So we're not the only organisation that is on an Agile journey, and whilst lots of the use cases for Agile appear in the technology world, we're not alone. So following up on the theme of cheese and cake, we are lucky enough to have a really great example of how Agile works outside of our own industry. And we have joining us today Riccardo Mariti. He's disappeared.
Just powdering his eye.
Okay. Riccardo, we were lucky enough as a bank to come across, found by links, I think. Riccardo runs a very successful restaurant in southwest London, and in response to some of the inevitable challenges which we all see through things like, kind of Hell's Kitchen and all that sort of stuff in the restaurant trade, Riccardo decided that he would move his restaurant to an agile model. As a result, he's become perhaps a bit of a poster boy for the agile movement and knows Jeff Sutherland very well and speaks regularly at some of the big agile conferences and get-togethers. So in the spirit of cheese and cake, I would like to introduce Riccardo.
Pleasure to be here today, and a real honour to be here on your special day, your first proper retrospective. And I love the EBRD and everybody I've met at EBRD. I just think the whole organisation seems to have a massive heart, and they really want to do great things for the world. So it's really nice to be here, try and support that, and tell you a little bit about my story. My name's Riccardo Mariti. I'm the CEO and founder of Riccardo's Restaurant in Chelsea. We've been open next May 25 years. I've been on the premises for about 30 years. And I've been around the business all my life. I was born a couple of 100 yards from my father's restaurant. And the restaurant business, the model is broken as far as I'm concerned. The management model, by that I mean the management system that we use for running restaurants just doesn't seem to work anymore. And I thought it was really just restaurants, but it seems to be quite generic through a lot of other industries. And when we're looking at kind of like trying to find out the cause, a a lot of it, I think, is to do with the fact that the workforce seems to have changed. We have millennials, 50% of millennials have entrepreneurial aspirations. 65% of Gen Z, as they call them in America, or Generation Z, have entrepreneurial aspirations, and apparently only 5% will ever be able to realize those aspirations. And so we kind of had this very disconnected workforce. And they don't respond very well to managers. And over the years, I always thought that there was a problem. I always thought that most people had a lurking demon in them, because whenever I promoted a really decent human being to being a manager in a restaurant, they became a megalomaniac. Well, that's how it seemed. Almost immediately. They felt that they had to rule with an iron fist and tell people what to do, and all the things that we had really promoted them because they were good at serving customers, looking after our people, customer service. They stopped doing that almost immediately. And I realized it's not the people at all, it was just the label of manager seemed to have a tremendously negative effect on most people. And I think it was the expectation, is what they felt, the organization, what they felt that we were expecting of them when they became a manager. They stopped in my restaurant, stopped hanging out with customers completely and became administrators, with a board in their hand. And I think the sad part of that is A, they thought they were doing the right thing, and B, the people that they were leading or not leading really very well suffered dramatically. As I said, my dad was in a business. I grew up around the restaurant business. All his friends were all in the business. And I saw people after 20, 25 years working in the same industry for the same people. It's completely institutionalized. They could only take orders. They weren't managers. They'd worked their way through, and there was a very sort of strict pecking order. And in those days, you only became a manager when the manager left, and they would stay there as a career. And then you'd have people in their sort of 40s and 50s completely unable to make decisions for themselves in the corporate environment. I don't know what their personal lives were like. But I've always found that especially the restaurant business, extremely abusive. And I was dreaming of a different way, of something, having a flat organization, of really empowering team members to take responsibility. And every time I try to share my vision especially with my accountants and lawyers and people like that, they said, it'll never work, don't do it. You can't do a profit share, you can't make salaries visible, you can't do any of these things. But it came to about 2016, so I opened in 1995, and in 2016, I had to find a solution because our margins were being squeezed and the wages were escalating out of proportion. And I knew that within a very short period of time we'd be losing a significant amount of money, and I had to find a solution to that, otherwise, or exit the business. I didn't know what to do. And at that moment, a very nice guy recommended me to these two books. One was Jeff Sutherland's book, The Art of Getting Twice the Work in Half the Time, and the other was General McChrystal's Team of Teams. And I devoured those books, and in the back of the Scrum book, there's a fabulous little implementation Scrum checklist. And I thought, well, I'm going to give this a go. So I had some very bright guys working with my marketing and admin team. And I said, do you want to have a go at this? I gave them the book, and they read it. They said they really liked it. We booted up our first Scrum team. That would have been at the end of 2016. And we ran it just according to the book. That's all I had, And we noted down our velocity after 2 sprints. We were running weekly sprints. And in the following 3 sprints, we tripled our velocity. And it was like, wow, this is incredible. It really does work. They were very, very excited about it. And already that team had been very flat. We didn't have any managers in that particular team. So I started trying to implement it in my front of house and kitchen, and that's where all the resistance came in. I realized I was completely out of my depth and I didn't have any knowledge really, and I didn't know what to do. So I looked up in the back of I think it was the back of the Scrum book or somewhere like that, and I found that Scrumming ran courses. So I said, oh, I've got to go on one of these. And I found Joe Justice, who ran Team Wikispeed. He was making race cars, and he was doing a new iteration of a car every single week. It was really exciting. And I went to Sweden to see him, and I got to meet Henrik Nyberg, who's a very famous, he's done a fabulous video called Product Owner in a Nutshell, which is really, I think it's had about 4 or 5 million views now, and it really is a fantastic. It's 16 minutes, explains the whole of Scrum. So it's really, really worth watching. But I got to meet him, and I said to Henrik and Joe, look, I really want to become a Scrum Master. What shall I do? Shall I go to America and train, or should I train with you, Henrik? And Henrik said, oh, it's funny because Jeff Sutherland, the founder, he's coming over here in 2 weeks' time to Sweden, and we're co-teaching. It's our 10th anniversary. So the course is full, but since I know you now, I can put in a good word, and if you apply, I'm sure I can get you in. So I was on that course, and funny enough, as I had, this is about 4 months after I started playing with Scrum, and I'd given the book to all my key people, and my chef had kind of looked at 2 pages. I don't think my manager read a page, and when they realized I was going to go and train with Jeff Sutherland, they both handed in their notice and said they wanted to work in a place with more hierarchy. They wanted general managers, they wanted the thing, and they knew what was coming. So I had a great training with Jeff, and after that, actually, we went to Tesla together. I went to Bosch with Joe Justice again. We were trying to find companies that are running amazing Scrum. We were looking at Amazon, we were looking at Saab Aeronautics, we were looking at how do they do it, how do the people who are doing it really, really well do it. Because everybody was interested, Henrik, Joe, Jeff Sutherland, wow, restaurants are an amazing place. If we can prove it works in a restaurant, we can prove it works anywhere. And so I had a tremendous amount of support from them. And incidentally, I saw a statistic the other day that said 50% of people in the Western world at some point in their career worked in a restaurant or a bar. So he said, wow, so the conversation goes, I know Jeff Sutherland wants to change the world, he wants to free the world from the tyranny of management systems and really improve working conditions for people. He has a great story, but we said, well, if we could do something and become a good role model in a restaurant, then and make it open source, and hopefully people can come and have a look and get some ideas on how it's done. Anyway, after my first Scrum Master course, I went back to the restaurant and I said to the team, do you want another manager? And they all said no. Every single person. I had 32 employees. I had 30 then because 2 of them had left. Do you want another manager? And they said no. So I said, okay, so what we're going to do, we're not going to have any of the roles. We're not going to have Scrum Masters. We're not going to have product owners. We're just going to be team members. And so we went straight to this kind of, if you, in Team of Teams, McChrystal said, command and control environment. He was getting reaction time in 3 months to never. Sometimes they would never be able to, because it was so siloed that they didn't get information they weren't able to act. When he got to a command of teams, he was able to have a reaction time. He could call in a strike in about 2 weeks. And when he went to a team of teams, he was having 5,500 to 6,000 people on a 2-hour conference call 6 days a week, which they never cancelled, and it went on for years and years when he was in Iraq and when he was in Afghanistan. And he was able to react on intelligence within 20 to 40 minutes. They would raid a house, they would find somebody's mobile phone, there would be some pictures or some contacts on it, and they were able to call in a whole troop in another country to place an attack, and they got rid of, I think, about 350 of the top Al-Qaeda operatives in a very short period of time. But he said the only thing we had to do was get rid of that whole hierarchical structure and have a flat team. So I kind of had that picture in my head. I said to Tim, come on, let's do this. So they said yes. So the first big challenge we have is rota scheduling. And if anybody's worked in a restaurant or in a management position, you're trying to keep everybody happy and nobody's ever happy. And a manager would spend between 8 and 10 hours a week to schedule their rota. So I said to the team, would you like to have a go at this? And they said yes. So Jeff always told me, he said every great team he's ever seen had this habit of swarming. They would swarm around. They would, they would take the top priority backlog item and they'd say, right, who has the skill set to make this happen as quickly as possible? And they'd make it happen. So we said, okay, let's get the whole team in and see what happens. So we divided a little matrix out, and at the top of the matrix were the days of the week with the shifts, and down the side on the left-hand side we put the roles that needed to be covered in every shift, and we just put a tick where we needed them covered. We called the team in, and each person wrote their initials down on a piece of paper on a post-it. And I'll give Leah a copy of this deck if you like, because there's a lot of it, because I haven't got that much time. There's a lot of it I haven't done. It might be fun to read. So they swarm around, and they each took it in turns. We said, look, it's got to be a fair system for everybody. It's got to be a system where everybody has the rights. It doesn't matter whether you've been working for the restaurant for 20 years or you just arrived last week, you just have just as much right as anybody else. Yeah, we're all doing the same job. We're looking after customers, and that's what we do. They managed in 1 hour to schedule 4 weeks worth of rotas, which would have previously taken a manager about 24 hours to do. And they were blown away. Because not only that, but they were really super happy about what was going on. The interesting thing about that was we uncovered these hidden shifts. There were shifts not needed by the company, but the managers were actually scheduling. And it equated to 15% average we did an audit. I think we did an audit for 6 months prior. But in some months there was as high as 30% of extra shifts, more than the company needed, that the managers were scheduling to keep team members happy, just in case somebody got sick, this, that, and the other. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but we didn't know about it. And so we've now, part of what we've done as we've progressed, we've made everybody's salaries public, not in order for anything other than just to say, hey, they're all on a profit share, so we say, well, you need to know where the money's being spent. And our goal with making salaries public was not to keep everybody happy, but that anyone could look at it and say, actually, this is a fair system. I understand why that person's earning more money than me, and I know what I need to do in order to get to that position myself. And so far, we've been doing that for over 2 years, and we haven't had a problem. But there are also things like this. They're able to actually quantify now any team member, even the most inexperienced team member who joined us 3 weeks ago, could actually calculate how much it costs to put somebody on a shift. So they then, when they get together, and normally it's 2 or 3 people getting together on a Wednesday and on a Saturday, they spend about half an hour each time. And all the other guys jump on Zoom, and they come in and they organize their rotas. And if they're scheduling more shifts than the business needs, they just put a number up on the wall. And then we photograph it, and then we send it out to everybody on our group WhatsApp, and we know. So we're saying, but the interesting thing is that became the #1 backlog item for my team. I said, I'd like you to try and sort out why we're having too many shifts. And the whole thing normalized without much interference at all in 1 month, because some team members who were students, they wanted to carry on with their studies, and they sorted it out between themselves. And the evolution of the board, we went into a magnetic board. It saves us a lot more time when they don't have to write out their names all the time. And as I said, they've been running this for just a shade under 3 years now, and so far we've really improved really believe in making everything visible. That's one of the most important things for us, is that everybody has information and that we share as much information as we can, even to the point where we just use little magnets to show, hey, we don't need someone on this shift, or oh, we've got an extra person here. So it'll again be a little bit more obvious to the team on how we're doing it. We use the same system to try to get a stable team between the kitchen and the front of house. Because we figured, because we've got 32 team members working 7 days a week on 14 shifts, the combinations of different people is amazing. So we're trying to get the same people working as much as possible each week, so that they can get a real cadence on how to work together. Because one of the, I'm looking at Scrum, a perfect Scrum, and saying how do we try to get it as close to that as we can? And we're trying to get stable teams. So, the restaurant business is really, there are too many specialists. You've got barman, you have the receptionist, you have a chef, a salad chef, a pizza chef. Everybody has a little job to do. And that's, the antithesis of what we're trying to do with Scrum. We're trying to get cross-functional, self-organizing, self-managing, collaborative teams. And so, what we did was we said, and we didn't do this on purpose to get the result, but this was ended up the result. We said, look, you get 25% share of the net profit, like the real net, not the net that's been adjusted. It's like only the cost of sales and cost of labor, rent rates, gas, electricity, telephone, no business development costs, anything like that. They get 25% of the real profit of the business, and they can distribute it in any way they want. They can have as much holiday as they want. So we started paying people in their hourly rate. We started adding 12.07% of their salaries onto their hourly rate, so they would get their holiday pay every week. And we said you can have any day off you want, and you can have as much holiday as you want. There's just one proviso. Anybody who covers you has to have the same skill set as you, and it's your responsibility to find that person. And what we found was that people started cross-training each other. A barman started, every single team member now in our front of house department knows how to do every cocktail. They know how to make coffee. They know how to run the bar. Even our kitchen department are coming up and doing the same thing, and they're training each other. And I have one chef who actually can do every single job, front of house, runner. He can even do some accounts, and he works in the kitchen. He just really wants to have his own business one day. So what was interesting was we were able to give people a 10% pay rise, which was made them all very happy. But also we need a lot less people. We didn't really anticipate that would be the case. But when you have people, so if I have a barman who's able to come out and take an order to a table over there, and it gets busy, he can come out 3 times during the service and take an order, or he can go and welcome somebody at the door. Suddenly you find the team saying, actually, we're not under pressure anymore. We were under pressure before because the barman was there cleaning glasses, and we were having to run around all over the place. And then when you have the barman taking an order on the table over there, and the receptionist has just had an order for a drink, she can go behind the bar and make the drink. So then they all revert back to their roles. But at times when they're needed, they will move out and they'll take over. Probably very similar to Richard when he was in the army and how they work. And what we did was we said each extra job you get between 50p and 75 pence per hour for every extra job you can do. And if they're working 40 hours a week, they get an extra 20 grand. So 20 pounds a week, so it's 1,000 quid gross every year for each job they can do. So if you do 4 jobs, they get 4 grand, and they give themselves a pay rise basically. So I can do that job, and we show them how they can do it. So breaking down these sort of tribal barriers, we're trying to get what we call T-shaped people, where we have our deep skill, which is our core skill, and we have broad skills across the top. And we started saying we had like a T4, and actually we've now evolved that to a T5. So T3 would be somebody who knows how to do reception, bar, waiter. They know a bit of admin, a bit of kitchen, a bit of marketing. A T4 would be they know home delivery, reception, bar, waiter, and the other bits, and they might know a bit of accounts. And the depth. So if somebody has a lot of experience and they have an enormous ability, then that will affect their pay. Not just their pay, but we have a discussion, or at least I will facilitate a discussion on how they do their profit share. And the team realize, yeah, that person over there, they're a real high performer. And one of the things that I realize is that the Pareto principle applies to teams as well, even superstar teams. You normally have 20-30% of the team members producing 70-80% of the results. And in Scrum, instead of saying, oh, they're better than me, or he's better than her, we're saying, great team. All we need to do is facilitate those people producing more. So how do we remove impediments from them as team members to get them producing more? And I think we've started recognizing we have certain team members who are just real superstars with customer service. We need to have them in front of customers all the time. And other team members who are very good with customers, but not as good, they realize, oh, I can go and answer the phone, or I can go and take, help out serving that table while somebody else is welcoming someone at the door. So it's really a same thing in the kitchen. We've got these people who can do the pizza, salad, grill, pasta. You can see I put an arrow down. The pasta guy's going to have more experience in that area. So we look in the marketplace and say, what does somebody earn in the marketplace, and then we'll adjust their salary accordingly. So one of the little sort of spin-offs that came out of things was recruiting. Traditionally, what had happened was every time we needed a team member, I would go and build a landing page and go and put some ads in Indeed or wherever we were recruiting at the time, and I would bring people in. We lost 4 people right at the beginning. We lost 4 people with 2 students finished their degrees. One went to live in Berlin, one went to live in Madrid. We had one girl whose parents were dying, her father was dying, and she went back to look after him, and one team member left, all in the same week. So I said, oh Christ, I better do something quickly. So I go and lock myself in my office, and every time I go, I'm working, phoning, interviewing people, trying to get new team members in. So, and I go back into the office, and I realize that into the restaurant, the morale is really low, and I couldn't work out why. And I'm asking them, and they say, oh, nothing's been done, we're going to be in the real crap in 2 or 3 weeks' time by the time these people have worked out their notice and so on, and we're not going to have anyone. So I remembered Henrik's slide. He had a recruitment slide, and I thought, oh, I've got to make this visible, what I'm doing. So I created that board on the right-hand side, and I started populating it. And I put it right in the middle of the area where the team members could pass every day, and I told them, hey, this is what I'm doing on recruiting. And I had an assistant at the restaurant, so even if I wasn't there, I'd phone and I'd say, oh, Jack's coming in for an interview, coming in for a trial shift next Tuesday. They'd write the date on it, and they'd put that on the board. And what was interesting, and I noticed very quickly that morale started going up and people started talking about it. Almost everything to do with Scrum is about entering into conversations. It's about setting up these systems that just make communication saturation happen. It's where people start to talk to each other. Instead of me running off to my office and doing that, I'm involving my team in it. So my assistant was, one day she was filling up the to-phone column. We'd done a very successful recruitment campaign, and we had 30 people to call. And I didn't have time because I was in interviews. And my team, when I came in, said, look, we've got all these people need calling, and it keeps growing. And I said, well, I'm interviewing, and I've got somebody in 15 minutes, I'm quick bite to eat, and I'm running off to go on the interview. And they said, can we help? So I said, yeah, sure, of course you can. So just pick up the post-its and do it. And they all had the telephone number and the email of the people from the CV. And to cut a long story short, they managed to recruit 3 out of the 4 people for me themselves. While I was in interviews, they said, hey, we've got somebody really good. They've invited them in. They were there at the time. And but it was kind of interesting because they really felt that they were being involved in the process. And it made them much happier. And also when the team members that they had recruited came and joined our team, they kind of had this real incentive to make them successful because they had selected, rather than me putting somebody on the team, sort of like in an HR function. So this is how we're running our daily Scrum. I don't think I've got the volume training can be really quick. It's like, hey, what do you know about blah, 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 bang, 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 okay, you're green, green, green. And our job as a team is to get everyone to green. Any team member can turn any other team member's colour. Nobody's abused it yet. I was expected to come in and find everybody turned to red, or, you know, but nobody's played with it yet. And so if somebody needs retraining, they'll just turn them to yellow and say, hey, you know, that person needs retraining. She made 3 mistakes on the service, or he made 2 mistakes, and he served a coffee wrong, whatever it might be, so they'll get retraining in that particular thing. And that spreadsheet goes on for, it's got 4 tabs, and it goes on for a long time, long way. We've got everything there, every single black card in there. And so we're talking about this every day, saying, hey, what can we do? What little thing can we do today that's going to make a difference to what we do? So the times of our daily scrum, our accounts department 8 a.m., kitchen 9 a.m., marketing 9:15, front of house department come in, they do their daily scrum at 10:30, and then we have a scaled daily scrum, which that's the new term for what we used to call scrum and scrums. So scrum and scrums now is the term that is used to in the scrum guide. The scrum and scrums is it's the actual team itself. It's the team of Scrum Masters. The scaled daily scrum is the meeting that they go to. So we have a scaled daily scrum where we are covering any impediments. It's normally breakdowns or something's happening, somebody's sick. We have a pre-shift meeting where we show the video and we go through some basic training with at least with 1 or 2 team members, especially new people. Our daily checklist for front of house is designed to bring up impediments as quickly as possible. So, you know, early on in the day, we want to know, does the computer work, do the credit card machines work, we do all of that as early as we possibly can so we can do something about it. So, I thought was a great question, and this came out of where I was in Washington, D.C. a few weeks ago, and they were saying, this is the new question that everyone seems to be asking, and is our number 1 backlog item for the sprint done? Yes or no? If not, why not? And who do we need to add to that team right now to get it done as quickly as possible? So it's like the daily scrum meeting it's a replan. It's not a status report. And I think a lot of people get a misunderstanding of this. And I can't remember the precise words of our question on our table, but it was all to do with sort of being rigidly sticking to the scrum process. But you know, we've got to understand why we do have the different elements in Scrum, and the whole idea is we're just trying to get stuff done that's good for customers, or for team, you know, for the team. I would argue probably that the team members are the customers. So team training, we again, I keep coming back to this idea of swarming. We're trying to get people to swarm. We started off by saying, okay, we've got 2 job functions here. We've got team member and restaurant owner. And then everyone said, well, I don't really want to be in the restaurant business all my life, and that's not my ambition. We said, well, okay, since we know that 65% of my team, probably most of them are Generation Z, a few millennials, but you know, we know at least 65% of them are entrepreneurial. How do you like to be a business owner one day? They all say yeah. Every single person says yes. So why don't we train you to run a business? So you can leave here, or if we get so busy and so successful, and in fact we're just opening another restaurant now, our 2nd restaurant, that we have everybody so overqualified, we can just take you and we can give you another restaurant, you can run the restaurant. And then we'll just do as many as we can. And so we thought that would be fun. We go for full, brutal transparency, everything, nothing hidden at all. Everybody can see everything. It's to that point of a friend of mine who used to be a trainer at Sandhurst. He said his officer told him he had to delegate the maximum discomfort to his level of discomfort. And then he said he was probably delegating just enough. And I feel the same way with transparency. And yes, it can go wrong and it can be dangerous. Of course, in a bank, it's just, you have a lot of privileged information. But in my business, we don't. But sometimes at the beginning, especially if you're quite naked, you know, it's like all this staff, they know how I spend every single penny that goes through the company. This is, I put most things through the company. They know I spend my money. They all have access to Zero, and they can all log in and they can see everything. So it's kind of getting to that point. So we believe that great leaders create more leaders, not followers. We started creating these mini trainings for the team members around the restaurant, things that needed to be done, things either needed to be cleaned or maintained or repaired. And so we said, okay, how do we train people using Scrum and get all this stuff done and do it all as a way for them to understand the framework better. So we run fluid roles. So we say, okay, would you like to be a Scrum Master today? And they go, yeah, I'd love to be. Would you like to be Product Owner? Yeah. Okay, we've got this job to do. What's your vision for that job? You've got 1 hour to get it done. Can you create the vision? Can you create the backlog? Can you prioritize the backlog? If we could only do one thing, what would it be? And so and we're all stakeholders, so you can talk to all of us about it. So they're running this thing through. We try to get each person to run all the different parts of. How long have I got? Oh, wait. Oh, really? Okay. Okay. Team. This is one of the team Kaizen. I thought that I was responsible for it. That's Jeff Sullivan, by the way, working out in our garage a couple of years ago. No, team comes up with some ideas. They've really bonded well together. We're making team. We've got a great form here which actually puts all the different teams on, and we work out all the teams. We establish how well they're doing with all the different parts of Scrum. Teams first backlog, that's a new team member backlog. We realized that we only make money when customers are in the restaurant, therefore everybody has to subordinate their work to serving customers or removing impediments from somebody serving a customer, whether it's an admin person, somebody in marketing, whoever it is, they have to be on call between midday and 2:30, and if they're working in the evening between 6:30 and 9 o'clock, which is our busy time. And that's really, really different. So as you see, our customer service scores have gone up. I've talked to you already about that. I'm not going to tell you about this, you can read it later. Numbers, we're looking at process efficiency in the restaurant business much more than velocity. And I have a whole training on that, which I'm going to give you the full thing, which you can read through later, which you explain to me. We're making money. Where we budgeted a loss here on this particular month of 1,700 quid. We made £11,000 profit for that month. On a typical month, we were budgeting 10,000. We made 16,000. That keeps happening all the time. So we're doing all right. Yeah, you can read that later. The one thing really, really, really important, great companies have almost zero decision latency. We are pushing decision making down to the absolute lowest level. And you can see here on the Standish Group, this was from 2013 to 17. The difference, 58% success rate on project with a 1 hour decision latency, and it went down to 18% for 5 hours, and 32% failures. I think that was a study of thousands of teams. So it's really, really, really important that we push it down, especially in the restaurant business. Our customers can walk out, trash us on social media within 1 minute of walking into the restaurant. They can talk to 100,000 people, and so we have to push that all down. This was a bit I did for you guys, but it takes 2.5 minutes. But if you want, I can finish.
Should we?
Do you want to do this or questions or?
I think it'd probably be good. Where's Linz and Leah? Because we're on the clock to get to lunch, I think, aren't we? So why don't we draw a line on that and take some questions? I think questions for.
Yes.
What's your attrition level?
What, team members? Almost nothing, and we've got team members coming back now who used to work with us, and they've seen what we're doing because they're all in touch with each other through social media. The last 2 years, but almost no one. And if it is, it's really for personal reasons. People really love working with us. Come down and meet them. I mean, we're only here in Chelsea, so quite a few of our friends here today have been down to Wrestle. Yeah.
If you were suddenly having to report to someone,
Yeah.
so you've got someone above you, how would you persuade them that this this is a really good idea because obviously, you know, we don't all. I mean, not even Richard has to report to someone. What would be the advice to Richard to persuade his seniors to take this on board?
If you don't believe it's good, let's prove it doesn't work. Just give me 1 month, but I've got to have full autonomy to be able to run it for a month the way it needs to be. And to me, I mean, I'm a Scrum purist because I like to be able to fix things when they break. So I like to stick to pure Scrum because when it breaks, it's really easy to fix. So you have a very, very, very easy framework to work with, and I just say, give me a go. And you know, if it doesn't work, we won't do it. But it always works. That's number one. Number two, I mean, maybe, do you know what Mercedes did? Mercedes desperately trying to get Jeff Sutherland to go and do consultation for them going agile. They said, if we don't go agile in the next 3 years, we won't have a business. And their execs, Microsoft are now fully Scrum. They're really on a big Scrum movement. They went, all their top executives just went round to all the top companies in the world that were running Scrum and just watch how they did it. You know, there are some, I mean, Amazon have 3,200 Scrum teams. They're deploying new functionality to Amazon's website every second of every day, 365 days a year. I turned on I went to order something on Amazon on Monday morning. I don't know if anybody's seen it. The whole portal changed, like boom, from one day to the next. You know, and it looks great, but I don't know. Does that answer the question? Yeah.
What sort of size teams do you need to make those sorts of ideas work? So, I mean, you mentioned you had like 32 people was in your team. So
Yeah, I'm trying to keep the teams like the perfect Scrum size is 4.6 people. I don't know how we get to 0.6. We have 4 or 5 people. Yeah, 4 or 5 people. I've noticed even when we have a dinner, we had dinner with when you put 10 or 12 people around the table, it gets quite difficult to really communicate effectively. When you get 4 or 5 people around a dinner table, you can really communicate well. It's like a family, you know, and you become. So I would say Scrum, you could do it on your own, but if there were 2 of us and we were running a Scrum team and we were doing a startup, just you and me, I would say, okay, one of us has to take the role of Scrum Master and they've got to remove impediments, the other guy's got to drive ROI. You know, we've got to drive some income in. So there's 2 different parts of the brain that are working on those 2 things. So one's being really creative and the other one's solving problems. So I think whether we swap every month or, you know, in a regular cadence is fine, but you normally find somebody has a predisposition to one or the other and put those jobs. And yeah.
A quick question about you mentioned team of teams, and there seems to be a connection between the underlying 30 people and those 5 people, and you said that people were swapping in and out, so they can't all be coming from a 5 team, so there must be team-to-team communication. Can you just explain how the whole thing's holding together?
Team of team communication.
Yeah, is there only 5 people in the restaurant at any one time?
We started off with WhatsApp, and that worked really well for a while, but then you have to police it quite well, because otherwise people sort of, you know, dropping important information. So like, okay, so there was a team one just for business only. But really lots of meetings, very short meetings, and I don't mean lots through the day, I mean just a meeting every day where we get a full update on what's happening and what's important. And sharing the vision, I think, and talking to people, and really encouraging people to pick up the phone and talk to each other. It seems that, I don't know, people nowadays don't like talking to each other. They want to message each other, they want to do all that stuff, but we're trying to get people in a room, or we're trying to get people working together. In a restaurant business, you know quickly when something's going wrong, because you've got unhappy customers upstairs and unhappy people running around.
If you have, sorry, just to follow up, on that sounds like there's only one goal, i.e. happy customers. If you were in a scenario where there were what appeared to be incompatible multiple goals, how would you scale up from?
I mean, well, I think that's one of the biggest problems that I see with companies, is they have 32 amazing initiatives, and they're all top priority. And it's the first way to drive insanity. You can only have one top priority. Somebody has to make a decision, and that's the job of leadership, is to influence the product owner preferably with one backlog for the whole company. And then you break them, how that's managed. But it should be visible for everybody, otherwise it's like, where are we going? It's difficult. And 3M divided up into different traffic divisions, and they have different divisions. Yeah.
Sorry, I think we've got time for one more. Can we have somebody who hasn't?
Yeah.
I have a question how you train people. So I often have this idea that if someone's done something for a long time, they're not going to buy into it, and people maybe spend less time. So when you put people on board, how did you find it? It's not necessarily to do with age, it's more to do with how, if someone has done something for so long, how did you get them on board and train them and get them to buy into what you wanted to achieve?
It's really tough with people who've had a long history of working in the business. I think that really applies also to what you're doing. If people have done MBAs and they've gone through this whole management structure, and then suddenly you're asked to go agile and you're asked to implement Scrum, it's really tough because you've got to unlearn everything that you know for certain was true and it was right. And you probably paid a couple of $100,000 to get your degree, and they're saying, actually, that's all crap. We're not doing that anymore. We're doing something completely different. Sadly, it's just the reality. I think you've got to. We find the best people working for us are the ones who don't have much experience in the business, but we can teach them as long as they've got a heart and a smile and they like it.
Brilliant. Aware of the time, I'm sure that everybody's sitting eagerly in anticipation of the next bit. Got lunch next, and then we're clambering around in the trees. I think Riccardo, you're staying with us for lunch and maybe a bit of this afternoon. He's got his jeans. Brilliant. So please, Riccardo's with us. If you've got those questions, please carry on the conversations. Use the energy that we've got out of this morning to overcome your nerves for this afternoon. Share your thoughts and concerns with everybody else. It's a great chance to get to meet and chat with people you haven't met today. Before we go off for lunch, and we'll hear in a minute what the instructions are, I would like to say thank you very, very much on behalf of all of us, Riccardo, for a really interesting and enlightening talk. Go along to his restaurant, that's not a plug. The food is very good.
Do we get this now? Anyone who works for EBRD always gets a drink.
The food's very good, but it is really interesting to actually see it at work and see the energy and passion that there is in that restaurant. So, Riccardo, thank you very much.